End racial disparities in maternal deaths, MPs. There have been some truly detestable race-baiting headlines on the BBC in the last few years, but none beat that. They really do expect you to believe that in hospitals across the country, doctors and nurses are at fault for deaths during birth because they take a look at the mother, see whether or not she's black, and then purposely decide to not treat them properly. Can you imagine that? The baby's out, doctor. Hang on a moment. The mother's black. Yes, she is. Now let's remove her liver. I think it was the post-Brexit and Donald Trump era that really awakened this commie beast and started making everything about identity politics. Things have just gone drastically wrong, to the point where I can't even believe that they printed this story. But they reported it with gusto. And if you have any critical thinking facilities at all, you can tell within the first 2 paragraphs that it's all complete nonsense, because you're expected to believe that individual choices have nothing to do with these figures, as if a middle-class woman who shops at Waitrose and goes to the gym 5 days a week is at the same risk during pregnancy as a big fat chav who lives off a diet of Super Kings and Special Brew and only ever gets any exercise when she's opening and closing the fridge 40 times a day. Just think of it logically. Why are these people incapable of putting anything down to personal choice? Why? Are they cherry-picking figures? Or are our doctors and nurses purposely trying to murder people? An MP's report is calling for faster progress to tackle appalling death rates for black women and those from poorer areas in childbirth. Oh look, and those from poorer areas is just casually dropped in there. One would assume that a big fat chain smoker from a council estate in Hartlepool is going to have a higher risk than a middle class Asian woman from the home counties. I mean, I'm just throwing that out there. The Women and Equalities Committee says racism has played a key role in creating health disparity. The fact that it's called the Women and Equalities Commission means it's about as trustworthy as a pyromaniac, kleptomaniac prostitute with a gambling problem. I want to see some actual numbers, please. Black women are nearly 4 times more likely than white women to die. An Asian, 1.8 times more likely. And women from the poorest areas of the country, where a higher proportion of babies belonging to ethnic minorities are born, are 2.5 times more likely to die than those from the richest. So you can see how they're cherry picking in these numbers. It's about your class. It's about how much money you've got. It's about the choices that poor people make, as opposed to the choices that well-off people make. But fortunately, we can get some actual data from the Daily Skeptic. No, BBC, racism is not killing black mothers. The first thing to note is that pregnant mothers are very safe, with a death rate of 6 per 100,000. 6 per 100,000. So there's any number of things that could go wrong. You could be unlucky and have a brain hemorrhage while you're giving birth. 6 per 100,000 is a small enough number where it's almost completely inconsequential. If 4 out of those 6 for every 100,000 happens to be Asian one week, does that mean the doctor has walked into a woman's room and went, "Crikey, it's an Asian. Nurse, pass me a pillow." Even taking a year-long period, deaths are extremely rare. Suicide and drugs and alcohol are prominent causes of the few deaths recorded, and cardiac disease and COVID have equal impact. So maternal mortality by cause, the highest one is psychiatric, and the second is cardiac disease. Psychiatric? What's that got to do with anything? So if a mother gives birth, hands the baby over, and then says, "Wibble, wibble, I'm a flying sausage," and then flings herself out of the window, was it racism that killed her, was it? For example, COVID was an indirect cause of death because it happened more widely and not because of pregnancy. Half the causes of death are not obstetric, which is a warning bell about the interpretations later. Data also shows the greatest predictor of later death was pre-existing medical problems, including obesity. Obesity is also given as a primary cause. Right, yeah. So if you don't personally seek out your foreign neighbours, kick the front door off its hinges, and then demand they follow you for a lengthy jog 4 days a week, well, you're racist as well. I mean, I don't know how they'd respond to a bloke kicking the door in and demanding to go for a quick 5-miler, but no. Why won't you help your neighbours, you filthy racist? Table 2.9 gives us the figures regarding race differences, the subject of media attention, but also prominent in the summary of the research report. The numbers are mercifully small, childbirth is very safe in the UK, and the white European results are the only ones sizable enough to merit detailed examination. To put this report into context, Black Caribbean mothers, we're talking about 3 deaths and 6 indirect, so 9 in all, in the entire country. More people than that die in the UK every year due to unfortunate masturbatory injuries. Just think about that. About 11 die every year getting hit by cat livestock, don't they? Stampeding herd of cows kills 10. The rates per 100,000 differ considerably, but the base populations also differ considerably, and there are 18 times more white people than blacks. When events are very rare, it is better to give absolute results rather than relative risk odds ratios, which could be misleading. The parliamentary group has gone overboard on a racism explanation for which there is no evidence in this study, and there is virtually no data analysis in this report at all. So there you have it. The numbers speak for themselves, but on a simple common sense basis, which is always the best thing to go off, because people can juke statistics and crunch numbers and cheat and lie. Everybody knows. Lies, damned lies and statistics. The simple fact of the matter is, as usual, the commies refuse to give individual agency as the result for any disparity. There might even be cultural reasons why women from like the Caribbean are less likely to go on the treadmill as women from Scotland. We talked about that during the pandemic. You know, I assume people living in Zurich are more likely to go for a stroll in the mountain air than people living in Middlesbrough, whose hobbies typically include drinking, gambling, and windmilling on the bouncers. The people are different and they make different choices. Crunching large amounts of numbers, finding a few minuscule number of incidents and saying therefore more racism is ridiculous and illogical, and it does a disservice to every single medical professional in the UK, because if you're not blaming their individual choices, the only thing left is that the medical professionals are doing it on purpose because more racism. And if you believe that, you'll believe anything. Thanks for watching, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed that brief one. I will see you all very soon. Cheers.